Well, it was an unceremonious end to what were probably unrealistic expectations for the United States men's national team in the Copa America tournament this summer, with their loss to Uruguay, leaving them with a lot of problems they need to fix and a major question on if they have the manager who can make those changes. We have two changes that absolutely must happen between now and the World Cup in 2026. We're going to talk about them next here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub. So the United States is not winning the World Cup in 2026. Let's just get that out of the way right now. For that to change, we would need to see some just absolutely incredible changes in terms of coaching, talent, philosophy from the top down across the board. We are not at that level, and that probably shouldn't be the goal. And the fact that this Copa America tournament was basically only looked at as a warm-up for the World Cup really shows us how unrealistic our expectations have been for this group of players. And I want to talk about that today because expectations play a major role in almost everything that this team touches. And so it has to be looked at through that lens. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look back at that Uruguay game. We're going to come up with two things that the United States has to do between now and the World Cup to even be competitive, let alone compete to win. But I'm talking get out of the group stage and actually make a run into the quarters of the semi. So we're going to talk about that today. Two things coming up. But before we do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. I make a lot of these videos about the United States, about European soccer, so make sure you go ahead and subscribe for me. Get down in that comment section. Let me know what you think about Berhalter, about the team, about this performance, about what they need to change, about the stuff we're going to talk about here. Get down in that comment section. You can also leave some comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub and check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. So I'm only going to talk briefly about the Uruguay game because there's not much you can say. There were tons of controversies, starting with the ridiculous camera angle that had no effect on the players, but certainly affected our outlook on the game and the way we consumed it here in the States, to the officiating, which was atrocious, absolutely atrocious. But in no way do I think it was not on the up and up. I do not think CONMEBOL has it out for the United States. There's nobody who benefits more by having the United States in this tournament than CONMEBOL. They want the United States to make a deep run. That's why the damn tournament is in the United States, to draw our fans in it and to get us in the tournament. That's all about money. It's always about money. So the tournament officials are not out to get the United States. Now, I can't speak to this official, and if he had somebody lining his pockets, I'm not suggesting anything, but that, I guess, could be plausible because he was that bad. And it wasn't just that he got calls wrong. We saw some things we don't see, like incredibly delayed advantage being called back, and a foul where a card's being given and play at no point stopped and almost cost the United States a goal. Really weird stuff like that. But again, I'm not actually suggesting anything. I think that referee is just that incompetent. He was that bad. It was a major factor in the game, and it did skew heavily towards the Uruguayan side. That said, there is no conspiracy. Nobody's out to get us. We may not be the planet's favorite football team, but nobody's out to knock us out of tournaments when they know the deeper we go, the more eyeballs will be on it, the more money everybody makes. So let's just get that out of the way right now. Even if that was true, even with all of the factors and all of the influence that the official had in this game, and he did influence the game, but even with all that, we didn't even come close to scoring. The United States did not come close to scoring. A couple shots on goal, less than 1 XG. They fought hard. This was a scrappy game. You know Uruguay is going to make it chaotic. I argued at the beginning of the game, I think that actually benefits the United States, and I still do. We played well in 90% of the pitch. It was that last 10% where you're supposed to take all your shots, where we struggle. But we fought hard. We controlled the ball as much as you can against a good team. And make no mistake about it, Uruguay's a better team than the United States. They're good. That is a good team. And so this was not a game where you're expected to go out and dominate possession and get a bunch of shots off. This game played out exactly how I expected it, and I thought the team played pretty well. They simply don't create shots. They don't create offense. That not even the final third, the final 10%, there's just nothing there. There's nothing there, particularly when Flo Balogun comes out with an injury. The drop-off between him and Pepe and Haji Wright and Josh Sargent is massive. Massive. And Balogun took a step back this year in France, but he was good in this tournament. And the drop-off there, as soon as he came out of the game, you knew you had almost no chance. So the issue here is that even though they played well overall and they fought hard and they battled and they're scrappy, it's a good team in that regard, they didn't even come close to scoring. It wasn't like they missed a couple key chances. No, at no point was the Uruguay goal even threatened. It wasn't even close. It wasn't close. And therein lies the problem. So there are two things that absolutely need to change between now and 2026 so that we can solve these problems. And we're going to talk about what those are. But before we do that, we got to talk about the expectations, because the expectations on our end are what need to change. The program, the organization needs to make two changes I'm going to talk about. But we as fans and as the media, I'm not the media, I'm a fan, but the media as well, need to change the expectations. We have dubbed this the golden generation. And I understand why. Christian Pulisic is going to go down as one of the best, if not the best, American player in history. And I do believe that he's worthy of that title. He is not an average player. He is an above average player. I don't think he's world class in that he would start on the left wing on any club in the world, because he's not Vinny Jr., he's not a few of these other guys who are very, very good left wingers, but he's one of the 10 best players at his position in the world. He's a guy we should be building around. He's a centerpiece on what could be a World Cup caliber competitive team, right? He is good enough to be the best player on a team competing for a World Cup. Probably just barely, but I think he is, assuming he has enough pieces around him. The thing is, he does not. This generation is not coming together the way we had hoped, and I don't know that that's their fault. I think the expectation of just how many of these guys were going to go on to be stars was incorrect. Weston McKennie's a good player. He's not a star. Jedi Robinson has turned into an above-average player. He's not a star. Giovanni Reyna has star potential, but he hasn't played enough, he's been hurt, and he hasn't gotten enough club time to see that development. He's the other guy who can be a star with Pulisic. And that would be quite a two-headed monster on offense. That would be the start of something really good. Tim Weah, good player, not a star. Yunus Musa, good player, not a star. Joe Scally, turning into a good player, not a star. Serginho Dest, when he's available, good player, not a star. We have a lot of good players, but these guys are not star caliber players. So this isn't France. This isn't England, where you have $50 to $100 million valued players at almost every position and a few more on the bench. We've got one of them. His name's Pulisic, and his value, quintupled this past year, because he just got sold to AC Milan for virtually nothing. So we don't have that, and dubbing them a golden generation and expecting this to come together as a World Cup winning team was unrealistic. Weston McKennie has turned out to be about what Weston McKennie was always going to be. He's a valuable player. I'd like to get to the point where he's not an automatic starter on this team. He's a sub that can come off the bench. He can start against certain opponents. He can play 4 different positions on the pitch and play them all fairly well. I like that. I'd want him on my club team. I'd want him on my national team. But the fact that he's an automatic starter on this team sort of is the problem. And that tells you where we are. Same thing with Yunus Musa getting a lot of playing time. He's good, but he's not there. Flo Balogun, clearly our best option at striker, but is he a top 10 striker in the world? No, not even close. It might be top 30, maybe top 25, somewhere in that range. I haven't really made a list, but that's not quite good enough to get it done. So it's the expectations that are wrong. We're going to talk about Greg Berhalter, because obviously he plays a massive role in this, and he's probably gone. Almost everybody thinks he should be gone. I agree, he should be gone. But everyone's trying to figure out where to put the blame. Is it on Berhalter or is it on the players? And you've got some folks saying, well, the players have to take some responsibility for the way they played in this competition. What responsibility exactly? Okay? Tim Weah has to have responsibility, punched a guy in the head, got a red card. Probably cost us the tournament. Yes, responsibility. If at any point anybody was not playing hard, I would say you need to have some accountability and responsibility. And we have had performances like that in the past, where we come out and look very lackluster on the road in CONCACAF games against inferior opponents, and we squeak by with a 1-0 victory because we look like we're sleepwalking. We've seen a bunch of those. Those are a problem, and I do hold the players accountable. It's not always on the manager to get them up for a game. But you can't question the effort in this tournament. The Panama game where Tim Weah got the red card, they fought every minute of that game to try and pull off a draw, and then tried to go for a victory and then ultimately a draw. But they fought hard. That was an admirable performance. Same thing with this game. This was a tough opponent. You had a ref who was very much one-sided. You had just scrappy football that you knew you were going to get from this Uruguay team, and they got down and dirty with them. I was so proud of that effort from this team. In terms of fighting, right? It's not their fault they're not good enough. It's not their fault they don't create enough goals. It's not their fault they're not good at finishing. It's not their fault they don't have any creative players. I'm sort of giving away some of my points I have to get to here, but I'm not sure what we think the players should have done differently. When talking about firing Berhalter, when talking about firing any manager, my question is always, well, what could they or should they have done differently? Well, how much time do you got? Because I could talk for an hour here on things Berhalter should have done differently. With the players, I'm not sure I do. I'm not sure I have much on that list, or if there's anything. These guys fought, they scrapped, they did their best. And that sounds very participation trophy-ish, but I'm not saying they should win an award for it. I'm saying we need to manage our expectations in terms of how far we think this team could really go. So if we were thinking we were going to win this tournament and that was some stepping stone for winning a World Cup, I don't know what team you've been watching. The team in the World Cup that barely skated out of the group, that was not exactly a dominant performance in the group, and then got the doors blown off of them by the Netherlands. I mean, we're not there on the world stage. Hey, just because we host the World Cup doesn't mean we're favorites to win it. That's not how any of this works. So I think a lot of that falls back on the fan base and on the media, the American soccer media, for managing the expectations. Because I would love to hear in the comments, please, I genuinely mean this, what should the players have done differently? If we want to hold them accountable for this, what should they have done differently? Gotten better? Trained harder? Wanted it more? I don't think any of those things are issues. They're all coming off their club seasons. Pulisic had the best season he could possibly have. McKennie had a good season. Adams has been hurt. He's doing it, but he played. He played even though he's barely played all season. Gio Reyna, it wasn't his fault he hasn't played all season that we know of. I don't know what these guys should have done differently. So I can only hold them so accountable. It's not an accountability thing. It's just a maybe this is as good as you are kind of thing. And that's a tough pill to swallow. But I think it's one we need to realistically accept and figure out how to change some things we can change. So there are two things that we're going to talk about right now that need to change between now and 2026. The first change starts in the coach's box, and this is the very obvious one that we need some sort of change. We put forth an average performance at the World Cup, probably about on par as to where we should have stacked up in that tournament, right? Got out of the group, didn't make it much further. Yeah, it seems about right. So I don't know that we underachieved dramatically at the World Cup, but it wasn't enough to make me want to bring Berhalter back because it was the same similar kind of underachievement it feels like this club or this team has had for a few years now under Berhalter. They bring him back anyway. Now it feels like they've actually regressed. They've actually taken steps back under Berhalter this second time around, which is even more concerning because I'm not sure what he was bringing to the table in the first place. So the first change is we need to have a coach that plays to the strengths of our best players. And that is my biggest concern with Berhalter, has been my biggest issue with Berhalter for years. If you go back to the early videos I made on this channel, they're not good. But the points I thought were fine, which was Berhalter has a system he wants to play, and he forces the square pegs in the round holes. Whereas a good international manager can take his best players and adjust the offensive strategy and the defensive strategy around those players. You don't have the roster flexibility on the international level that you have on the club level. Berhalter, Greggy, if you want to go coach your style, go to a club, and then let them get the players that fit your style, you'll probably be all right, right? He's okay. It's not the worst coach in the world, but that doesn't work in international football. This possession-based style and then just cross and pray, it doesn't work. It's not what our strikers are good at. Frankly, our wingers are not particularly great crossers. We don't have the creativity in small spaces to work with that amount of possession. I would argue that we actually have too much possession, particularly against the bad teams. Look what happened against Bolivia. We only managed 2 goals. We had possession the whole time. They sat deep in the box. We have no creativity. Gio Reyna is our only creative player. So having that much of possession in a short part of the pitch, in not much space, really doesn't play to our strengths. Tim Weah, Christian Pulisic do great when they're running at full speed. The fullbacks that are typically behind them, Jedi Robinson and Serginho Dest, when he is healthy, great with pace, running at full speed. This is a team built for transition. This is a team built for direct passing up the middle. This is a team built for counterattacking. Anything that gets them out into open space. When they get into open space, they are dangerous. Flo Balogun, you saw the goal he had against Bolivia, where it was sort of a transition play and he stopped, turned back, went against the goalkeeper's momentum. Fantastic finish. They are dynamic in open space, which is why I thought against Uruguay that actually played to their strengths, because Uruguay was going to have a lot of possession. They were going to have this long ball back and forth, and they were going to get out and run, right? We need teams that we can get out and run against, and we need to make it so that we get out and run. We can control that, and yet we don't. Berhalter for years now has played this possession-based style where we're just passing it back and forth, and yeah, we dominate possession, but it doesn't lead to any goals because we don't have players with the skill set to do that. So the next coach, and I'm not going to drop any names here. I've put some names out on Twitter. I've made some videos on a particular American coach who I think would be a good option. You can go check that out. But in general, we need a coach who will run an offense that plays to our best players' strengths. That is Christian Pulisic. That is Giovanni Reyna. That's it. Those are the 2 guys we build around. Everybody else fills in around that. But we need an offense that plays to those strengths. Christian Pulisic is great on the wing. He can play left or right. He's having fantastic go with Milan on the right, inverting in with that left foot. It's fantastic. He's been great. He can play on either side. Giovanni Reyna needs to be in the middle, creating, but with space. And that's the issue. When we have this much possession, we don't have enough space to operate in the final third, and thus we don't get shots off. Every shot we take gets blocked. How many shots were blocked against Uruguay? Oh my goodness. Especially once they gave up a little possession and allowed us to play our game, which was the best thing they could have done. So many shots get blocked. We need to generate more space and more transition. So I would love to see a coach that is willing to play that style. If I thought there was any chance in hell Berhalter could adjust and do that, I'd say fine, let's see it. But if he could have, he would have. At this point, it's obviously not happening. Make the change and let's get somebody in who actually will build around Pulisic and Reyna. The second change is in the midfield. Giovanni Reyna needs help. Weston McKennie is a good piece. He's not a traditional box-to-box midfielder. He wouldn't make a bad second pivot if you want to play that, but we generally don't play that. We usually play more of the 4-3-3. And against the worst competition, I don't think we need a double pivot. Again, I also said earlier, I don't want Weston McKennie to be an automatic starter. He should be a guy who plays against certain competition, plays we need to rotate, comes off the bench. We'd like to raise the bar. I don't know where that's coming from, but in theory, that's what we need to do. Giovanni Reyna is the only creative passer on this team. Even Christian Pulisic is not particularly creative as a passer in midfield. He's very dynamic as a scorer. He's the guy you want to get the passes to. But Giovanni Reyna needs help. We need another passer in the middle of the field. There has been so much just what I've called and what I said before, cross and pray, right? And you've got the wingers and the overlapping fullbacks, and they're playing off each other, and somebody's just trying to fling a ball into the middle and hope it finds somebody. That's not going to work, particularly with our set of strikers. The only striker we have that is built for that is Haji Wright, but he doesn't do a lot else well. I don't love Haji Wright. He's just okay. He's a depth piece. Flo Balogun is not the guy that's meant to get on the end of crosses. We need to get him out in space. We need passers in space. So the second thing the United States needs to do is spend the next 2 years figuring out where in their player pool they can develop a dynamic box-to-box midfielder, right? To go alongside Reina in that attacking midfield role, whether it's in a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 or what have you. But a midfielder who can create passes and create opportunities. We do not have enough of that in the final third to get it to the guys who are weapons, to get it to Pulisic, to get it to Balogun, to get it to Weah. We have some guys who can score goals. They can't get in the right opportunity to score those goals. They can't get in the right place, and thus they don't score as much as they should. Christian Pulisic does not score as much for the United States as he did this past year for Milan. We need to see more of that. So we've got to figure out how to develop that within the player pool we have, because obviously you can't just go out and get a player. This is international football. We got to figure out how to develop that within the player pool that we have. I don't see McKinney becoming that at 25. Reina is who he is, but he needs a partner. It can't just come from him. That's the problem, is we are too reliant on him as the guy orchestrating the attack. He needs a friend. He needs one bad. So it's not good. It's not good. It's time that we understand what this golden generation really is, which is good. It's a good generation of players. This is a good team. I don't want to downplay that, but it's not a World Cup winning caliber team. It's not even close to that at the moment. It's a team that couldn't get out of the group stage of the Copa America. Now, I do want to say I still think the punch from Tim Weah plays the majority of the responsibility from that. Without that punch, the United States probably beats Panama, especially with the effort they put forth after that. And they get out of the group stage, but they're going to probably lose their next game, let's face it. Or maybe they get one more game, but either way, we weren't winning the Copa America, and thus we're definitely not winning the World Cup. And so we're not close. I don't think we're going to get close by 2026, no matter who comes in to manage it. But we can get better, and we can be more prepared to put forth a better showing on our home soil when the tournament comes here. And that's what we need to do. Get a coach who plays to our strengths, get some help in midfield from somewhere in the player pool, and then we've got a fighting chance with those two things to not just get out of the group stage, but maybe make a run into the semis and put forth a valiant effort. I don't think anybody in the world is expecting us to win it. We shouldn't look at our team as a disappointment if they don't win it. But by making a deep run to maybe the quarters or the semis, we have a chance to change the perception of American football, and that's what needs to be done. Get down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. I'd love to get your thoughts on the team as a whole, the coaching changes, all this stuff. Leave some comments for me down in the comments section. You can leave some comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel for me while you're at it, and check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here at Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.